Yuji Itadori is here, and he has come to save Jujutsu Kaisen. After the death of Yuji's fallen allies under the constant threat of curses and evil, he is finally here. And after Gojo's death and Kashimo's defeat, all eyes are on the main character of Jujutsu Kaisen. You can doubt that, you can downplay it, you can question Yuji's role in all of this, but one way or another, it all goes back to Yuji, and the entire story revolves around Yuji to a hefty degree. So what will he do now? I'm afraid to say, but Ryomen Sukuna has broken, surpassed, and shattered the ceiling of Jujutsu Kaisen. He is the strongest sorcerer to ever live, albeit in ancient times and in the world of the future today. Sukuna is literally built different, and even the strongest characters just pray they can even reach his level of strength. It is especially clear now with Gojo and Kashimo. Even at their peak, it's really not anything to Sukuna. The difference in power is insane. And Gege made that clear enough because some people are actually in genuine denial about it. You can look at it negatively and criticize Gege's work and direction, but throughout the course of these fights with Sukuna, he has established himself as the strongest of all time, and these battles really show that gap. Even Sukuna's own mindset as the strongest, he is just a calamity of overwhelming strength that disregards all else, and that is kind of perfect. So what Sukuna said at the end of chapter 238 is true. Just what does this brat Yuji think that he'll be able to do? Really, what can anyone do if even Gojo Satoru lost? But now with Gojo out of the picture, I actually like what this sets up because Gojo raised his students to face threats like this, and Kashimo served to prove that Sukuna cannot really be contended with through practical means. So Yuji and the generations of sorcerers today have to defeat, they have to kill and curse Sukuna by any means necessary, or everything will end. But it's very interesting that we're getting Yuji now, because I think this fight with Sukuna will serve a huge part in ultimately saving Megumi, and could potentially leave some creative options for Gege to involve more sorcerers into the fray. From 238, Hakari and Uruume have finished their domain expansion round, so that can only mean that Hakari gets his jackpot bonus. And then Haguruma Horomi pulls up, and of course Yuji jumps into the battle with some very interesting augmented arms. So it's either going to be 3 sorcerers versus Uruume and Sukuna, or 2 separate fights with Yuji and Haguruma versus Sukuna, or Hakari versus Uruume. Either way, it's Jump Kaisen, and I'm all here for it. It is very unique that Haguruma was chosen given the dozens of other capable fighters in the series, especially considering Yuta or Maki that have special grade worthy power, but Haguruma is more akin to that of a grade 1. However, Haguruma's ability is very special. There are 3 aspects about Haguruma that make him very strong. And the first obviously is that his domain expansion, Deadly Sentencing, is an old style domain that doesn't allow any sort of violence. And he holds a court case where the defendant has to make a case for himself against their own crimes, for which Sukuna, yeah, I don't really see him trying to defend himself for the mountain of atrocities that Sukuna has committed. This is the same guy that eats women and children for fun and mass murders on the regular.
I did it because I love order. Hell, I love you. I'm saying, I'm just itching. I'm itching.
The second aspect of Haguruma's curse technique is that when the defendant is deemed guilty and the verdict is final, when Sukuna gets that death penalty, which he probably will, Judgment causes confiscation to the opponent's curse technique to strip them of options, and it also makes it harder for the user to control cursed energy. And finally, as the third point, it would give Haguruma the Executioner's Sword, and without exception, anyone cut with the Executioner's Sword will die. Obviously, that is a pretty useful tool for the sorcerers, but that all depends on how Sukuna reacts to Haguruma's domain expansion. It won't at all be easy. And if Sukuna regained his domain expansion himself and repaired that brain damage, then I doubt Haguruma's domain would effectively be able to contest Sukuna's Malevolent Shrine or whatever else he has, unless it comes with some special condition. Like, Sukuna's definitely not losing to no lawyer, but as a tag team, he may actually become a real problem. But what's more intriguing is Yuji Itadori. This kid is truly becoming a demon god. And I understand folks look at Yuji versus Sukuna and expect ass pulls and whatnot, but the evidence is already there and we've been talking about it for a while now. Yuji is set up to be like this quote-unquote Sukuna killer in a sense. Yuji is like a cursed object soaked in Sukuna's cursed energy, and he can harness the cursed energy of other cursed objects like the death painting cursed wombs. And I'm certain that Yuji could still ingest the last remaining Sukuna finger. And the thing about all this is that we don't actually know what Yuji gains when he takes in these things. The fanbook mentions that the cursed object becomes cursed energy within Itadori, but what else does he gain? The biggest conclusion is that Yuji managed to gain one of Sukuna's curse techniques, which would be dismantle and cleave, since Gojo said way back in chapter 12 that in due time your body will learn Sukuna's curse technique, and that still may have a very relevant role to play even after all these years of reading Jujutsu Kaisen. There has only been just one occurrence more recently in chapter 216 that hints that Yuji has some kind of slashing attack, as after fighting Sukuna, Sukuna had noticed a small scratch on his hand and he was kind of surprised by it. There's not really a good explanation as to why Sukuna had this cut, or why the cut stayed after the bath ritual and everything, but Yuji is the biggest culprit for something like that, and with Gege, details like that matter and will be brought up later into the story. And we cannot just look over Yuji's arms at the end of chapter 238. It looks like Yuji has like these artificial claws or some kind of augmented cursed tool gauntlets. I mean, the design itself has like elbow blades and exposed muscle patches and claws. This could mean a number of things, and it could even be something related to Yuji's other 6 death painting brothers, like he inherited their traits. And he did say that he'll eat anything to kill Sukuna, and the death paintings likely have unique powers themselves that Yuji could harness or use. But I think Yuji is gaining some aspect of Sukuna's dismantle and cleave, and since he is soaked in Sukuna's cursed energy, he could be perfect to combat Sukuna's slashes, since a cursed technique attack does a lot less damage against its own user's cursed energy, like how Gojo survived his own hollow purple explosion. If this is true, Yuji really is just like anti-Sukuna. It's a very solid countermeasure, especially if they nerf Sukuna with Hagurama's domain expansion. They could really create the perfect opportunity to do some real damage to Ryomen Sukuna. And now we know Yuji has more. He has his own plan to save Megumi, and Yuji has been studying Yuki Tsukumo's research on the soul and prison realm. And now Yuji apparently seems to be able to switch souls or influence the aspects of the soul in some kind of way. Remember, they still want to render Sukuna unable to fight, to which that is probably the hardest thing to do in this specific circumstance, but they need to accomplish that plan in order to get Megumi back, and Yuji is likely a huge part of that plan. Hopefully this plan doesn't go up in smoke, you know, like Hagurama just gets one shot, Hikari finally runs out of luck, and Yuji is left all alone again. Gege would pull something crazy like that, but I think it's time that our cast had some real progress. The question is this gonna be Mickey Kaisen or Jujutsu Kaisen? Because we really got the peanut gallery facing off against the king of curses. Overall, it won't be easy at all. At this point, I couldn't even imagine what's next, but I trust our sorcerers got something for us. This is the culmination of everyone's efforts to purge the quote-unquote curse that is Ryomen Sukuna, and I'm not gonna lie, I fully expect some more deaths before the end of the series when trying to bring down Sukuna. But comment below what you guys think. Will Yuji lose initially? How long is this fight gonna last for? And who will step in next? Please share you awesome brothers and sisters thoughts below. This has been Enemy Stand User, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.